The planet was unlike anything humanity had ever discovered. Its sky shimmered with impossible colors, deep violet blending with streams of gold as three suns hung low on the horizon, casting long, unnatural shadows across the endless desert landscape. Towering rock formations pierced the ground like the teeth of some ancient creature. Strange glowing plants stretched upward toward the sunlight, their luminous branches moving gently as if they were alive and searching for warmth. The air was dry, yet it carried a faint, sweet fragrance. Beautiful, calming, and completely unfamiliar. Across the distant horizon, strange bird-like creatures with shimmering, iridescent feathers raced through the sky. They moved so quickly that the human explorer could barely follow them with his eyes. He had come to this world as part of a mission he barely understood. Earth had sent him beyond the known territories of the galaxy, to explore, to observe, and to find out what existed beyond humanity's reach. But with every step across the alien soil, one feeling grew stronger. He was not alone. The silence itself seemed to be watching him. The glowing plants, the distant mountains, the endless sky. Everything felt aware. Then, high above the jagged rocks and radiant fields, something appeared. A spacecraft descended from the heavens. It moved with impossible grace, drifting through the atmosphere as if it were dancing with an invisible force. There were no engines roaring, no signs of struggle, only perfect control. The human froze. This was not a random vessel. It belonged to someone powerful, someone feared across countless worlds, the alien warrior princess. A legendary figure whose strength, intelligence, and combat abilities had become the subject of stories throughout the galaxy. And now, she had come to meet him. She was young, but her reputation spoke of decades of victories and challenges faced with unmatched courage. Her eyes glowed faintly with determination, and her armor reflected the sun in streaks of gold and violet. Every detail of her appearance signaled power, confidence, and the promise that no one could defeat her easily. Word of the humans' arrival had spread quickly across the alien city near the edge of the desert. The city itself was unlike any human city. Towers of shimmering crystal rose high, connected by bridges made of light that pulsed gently. Streets were alive with alien creatures of every shape and size, moving with purpose, some flying, some walking, some gliding. Sounds of soft music and unfamiliar instruments filled the air, blending with the hum of strange machines. The human's presence was a curiosity, a disruption in the usual rhythm of life, and the warrior princess was determined to confront him immediately. When she landed in the central square, the crowd parted instinctively. No one dared stand between her and the unknown human who had wandered into their world. She stepped from her craft with grace, her every movement precise, almost like a dance. She surveyed the human carefully. He was taller than she expected, wearing a suit that seemed bulky compared to her sleek armor. But there was something in the way he stood, calm, composed, unafraid, that drew her attention. "Human," she said, her voice carrying easily over the murmurs of the crowd. "You have entered my world, you have seen the beauty of this planet, and you have walked freely among my people. But do not think you are safe." She moved closer, her gaze sharp and unwavering. "A minute is all you'll last. Your kind is weak. You will not survive. My strength." The human did not flinch. He adjusted the straps of his suit and gave a small, polite nod. He was used to dangerous situations, trained to face challenges with both strategy and calmness. Yet, he had never faced anyone like this. He could feel the weight of the princess's presence, the aura of someone who had never known defeat. It was intimidating, yes, but also fascinating. There was a spark of curiosity in his mind. How could someone be so confident, so certain of victory before even engaging? The crowd watched in silence, holding its collective breath. The princess moved with confidence, circling the human as she spoke. "Do you understand what you are facing? Do you truly believe you can survive a warrior of my skill?" "I don't underestimate anyone," the human replied evenly. His voice was calm, steady, carrying none of the fear that might have been expected. "But I do not overestimate myself either. I will face what comes." The princess's eyes narrowed, a mixture of surprise and amusement crossing her features. Most who faced her either trembled or laughed nervously, trying to deflect the tension. This human, however, stood firm, meeting her gaze without faltering. Something about that made her pause, even if only for a moment. She had never encountered a human who did not quake at her reputation. "You are brave," she said finally, her tone softening slightly. "Or foolish. Time will tell which. But if you wish to test your courage, then we shall meet in the arena. There you will see if you can survive a minute or more." The arena was the heart of the alien city, a place where warriors proved their strength and skill. It was vast, circular, with walls that shimmered with energy, rising high enough that no one could see beyond them. The floor was smooth and reflective, and platforms of varying height allowed for both combat and display. The human followed the princess, walking with measured steps, aware of every eye upon him. The whispers of the crowd reached him. Can he really face her? And no human has ever lasted 5 seconds. Inside the arena, the princess demonstrated her skill effortlessly. She moved with speed and precision, leaping from platform to platform, spinning her weapons with fluid grace. Each movement was a statement. She was not only powerful but in total control. The human observed quietly, noting every motion, every angle, every possible opening. He knew that brute force alone would not win this encounter. He would have to use everything he had learned, everything that made humans unpredictable and resourceful. The crowd watched, excitement building as the princess prepared for the duel. "Remember," she said to the human, her voice clear and sharp, "I am the champion of this world. You will not defeat me. A minute is all you'll last." The human did not respond with words. Instead, he adjusted his stance slightly, centering himself, breathing slowly, letting his mind focus. He did not see an unbeatable warrior. He saw patterns. He saw strategy. He saw an opportunity to test his own limits. And in that moment, as the suns dipped lower and the shadows stretched long, the stage was set. Two very different worlds were about to collide, and neither the princess nor the human knew how much this encounter would change both of them. The crowd fell silent, the air heavy with anticipation. Every heartbeat seemed to echo in the vast arena. The princess's confidence was absolute, yet a flicker of curiosity entered her eyes. This human might be more than she expected, and the human, for his part, felt a surge of determination. He was no ordinary man here. He was about to face a legend, and perhaps in facing her, he would prove that courage and intelligence could meet strength on equal terms. And with that, the first move was about to be made, a moment that would mark the beginning of an unforgettable encounter. The arena was vast, stretching wider than any human stadium he had ever seen. Its walls glowed faintly with energy, humming softly as if alive, reflecting the sunlight that streamed from the 3 distant suns above. Platforms of various heights were scattered across the floor, some floating slightly above the ground, others embedded in glowing liquid that shifted in colors with every movement. The human stepped forward cautiously, feeling the smooth surface under his boots, aware that this place was designed not only for combat, but for spectacle. The alien warrior princess waited in the center, her posture relaxed yet radiating power. Her armor glinted in the sunlight, each curve and plate designed to maximize both movement and protection. Her weapons, unlike anything the human had seen, floated near her hands with a magnetic pull, as if they were extensions of her body. The crowd, made up of aliens of countless shapes and sizes, fell silent. They had come to witness her unmatched skill, expecting nothing less than a swift and decisive victory. "Prepare yourself," the princess said, her voice carrying across the arena with a melodic strength. "I will test your limits. A single mistake will end this duel." She spun one of her weapons gracefully, sending a small spark of energy into the air that made the crowd gasp. Her movements were so fluid that it seemed she was dancing, each step precise, each motion deliberate. Theo Human observed quietly. He had trained in countless environments back on Earth: deserts, forests, urban landscapes. He had faced challenges far beyond what an ordinary person could endure. But this was different. The princess moved faster than any human could, and her strength was beyond imagining. Yet he had something that even she did not expect: adaptability. While she relied on raw power and perfected techniques, he relied on strategy, observation, and the ability to think several steps ahead. The duel began with a sudden burst. The princess launched herself into the air, spinning gracefully as one of her energy blades sliced through the air. The human ducked instinctively, rolling to the side, his body moving faster than he felt possible. Sparks flew as her weapon struck the platform where he had been just moments before. The crowd erupted with excitement, cheering for the spectacle, some shocked that the human had even avoided the first strike. He quickly assessed the situation. The princess was strong and fast, but her attacks were deliberate. There was rhythm in her movements, a pattern he could learn if he stayed calm. Using the floating platforms to his advantage, he jumped, slid, and climbed, keeping just out of her reach. Each movement was calculated, conserving energy while testing her reactions. He noticed small tells in her gestures, slight shifts in her shoulders or hips that indicated where her next strike would land. The princess, initially surprised, adjusted quickly. Her eyes narrowed as she focused on him more carefully. "Interesting," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "You move differently from anyone I have faced before, but skill alone will not save you." She increased the speed of her attacks, her weapons blurring as they moved faster than the human could track at first. Yet, he did not panic. He relied on instincts honed through years of training and experience to anticipate her moves and evade at the last possible second. Each clash was more intense than the last. Energy sparks lit the arena with bursts of blue and purple as her weapon struck the ground or nearby platforms. The human blocked and dodged, using quick reflexes to avoid injury, though he felt the vibrations of each near strike through his body. Sweat formed on his brow inside the suit. Yet, he remained focused, adjusting constantly. He realized he could not defeat her with force alone. He had to outthink her. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. This was not the swift victory they had expected. Aliens whispered to each other, some astonished at the human's resilience. He moved in ways that seemed unpredictable yet precise, forcing the princess to pause occasionally to readjust her strategy. Her expression shifted subtly from confidence to concentration. As she realized this human was not ordinary, the princess decided to test his endurance. She launched a series of rapid attacks, each one targeting a different area, forcing him to react and move continuously. The human dodged, jumped, and rolled, his body straining with each motion. He used the platforms to gain leverage, pushing off walls, swinging from ledges, and occasionally drawing close enough to glance at her weapons, noting their patterns. He understood that surviving this on raw skill would not be enough. He had to anticipate her next steps before she even made them. For a brief moment, the two stood facing each other on separate platforms, their eyes locked. The princess studied him closely, noticing the calm determination in his gaze. It was unusual. Most opponents would show fear, hesitation, or even arrogance. This human showed none of those. Instead, he radiated focus, patience, and an unusual understanding of movement. She realized that underestimating him could be a mistake. The human, for his part, examined her in detail. He had never seen a fighter like her. The precision, the strength, the control, everything was extraordinary. But he also noticed subtle patterns in her approach. There were moments where her confidence made her predictable. Small habits, small shifts in weight or angle gave him openings. He could not afford to make mistakes, but he had the advantage of observation, of thinking differently than she expected. The duel intensified as the minutes passed. The princess grew more aggressive. Realizing her initial underestimation had been a mistake, she moved with even greater speed, launching attacks that combined skill and raw power. Yet the human adapted with every strike, moving almost instinctively, dodging with precision, and finding small opportunities to counter. Each near miss, each blocked strike pushed both fighters to their limits. The audience watched in awe. The princess was undeniably powerful, a force of nature, yet the human's resilience and adaptability made him extraordinary in a different way. For the first time, whispers of doubt spread through the crowd. Perhaps this human was not as weak as everyone believed. Perhaps he could survive longer than anyone had imagined. The princess took a moment to pause, spinning her weapons in a defensive circle. She studied him carefully, trying to anticipate his next move. "You are clever," she admitted quietly, almost to herself. "Perhaps I underestimated you. But the duel is far from over." The human adjusted his stance, his breathing steady, his mind clear. He did not boast. He did not panic. He simply prepared for the next exchange, ready to continue testing his limits. He knew this was more than a battle of strength. It was a test of patience, strategy, and courage. And so the duel continued, each movement faster and more precise than the last. Sparks flew, shadows danced across the arena, and the crowd held their collective breath. Neither combatant gave an inch, yet each learned from the other, adapting with every strike. The first minutes had proven that this encounter would be far more than anyone expected, a duel not of mere strength, but of skill, wit, and endurance. The princess launched another strike, this time faster and more calculated than ever. The human anticipated it, moving just in time to evade and gain higher ground. He had survived the first wave, and he could feel his confidence growing, though cautiously. Both were learning, both adapting, and the duel was far from over. What had begun as a challenge of strength had become a true test of minds, instincts, and the will to endure. The human had survived the initial onslaught of the princess's attacks, but he knew the true challenge was just beginning. Her speed and strength were extraordinary, and she had only grown more focused after seeing that he could dodge and evade. He took a brief moment to steady himself, centering his mind and body. Every muscle, every reflex, was preparing for what he knew would be the next wave of attacks. He had survived the first minutes by relying on instinct, but now he needed strategy. The princess, her glowing eyes fixed on him, moved with a new intensity. Each step, each swing of her weapons, carried precision and force. She had noticed subtle changes in his movements, patterns that suggested he was not only surviving, but learning. That realization sparked a mix of curiosity and challenge in her mind. She had fought countless opponents, and few had been able to keep up with her, much less adapt so quickly. Suddenly, she launched a series of rapid strikes, each one aimed at a different part of the arena. The human jumped, rolled, and leaped with remarkable agility, barely avoiding each strike. He noticed that she was following a rhythm, even in the randomness of her attacks. That rhythm became his key. By watching the timing of her movements, he could anticipate where she would strike next. Using the arena to his advantage, he began to move more strategically. He jumped from a platform to a floating ledge, ducked behind a glowing pillar, and even used the reflection of the arena's walls to gauge her position. Every movement was calculated, every decision purposeful. It was no longer just survival. It was about learning and adapting faster than she could. The princess noticed this change. Her strikes, once designed to overwhelm, now needed to be carefully measured. The human was not simply reacting, he was predicting. He was studying her, finding openings in her approach. She realized that defeating him would require more than brute force. She needed to think like he did, and that was not easy. The crowd watched in growing amazement. Aliens who had been certain of the princess's quick victory now whispered in disbelief. "He is not just surviving," one remarked. "He is learning. He is adapting." The human had become more than a curiosity. He was a contender, proving that resilience and intelligence could meet power on equal footing. The human seized a small opportunity. The princess had overextended her reach during a spinning attack, leaving a brief gap in her defense. He moved quickly, taking a calculated risk, and managed to get closer than he had before. He didn't strike at her, knowing that would be foolish, but the closeness itself sent a clear message. He was not afraid, and he could match her movements. The princess blinked in surprise. Few had ever dared to come this close to her in combat. Even fewer had done so without showing fear. That spark of unexpected courage made her pause for just a heartbeat, long enough for the human to step back and regain a better vantage point. His movements were precise, deliberate, and unlike anything she had encountered before. The duel became a blend of instinct, strategy, and observation. Each fighter learned from the other. The princess tested his endurance, launching attacks that combined strength and unpredictability. The human, in turn, adapted quickly, using his environment creatively, swinging from platforms, leaping over energy streams, and occasionally baiting the princess into patterns she might not notice. At first glance, for the first time, the princess felt a sense of real challenge. She had faced warriors from countless planets, each strong in different ways. But this human was unpredictable. His movements were clever, his endurance remarkable, and his focus unwavering. She could not simply overpower him. She had to anticipate, adapt, and respect the way he fought. The human too realized that he could not rely on raw speed or agility alone. He studied her strikes, looking for weaknesses without underestimating her skill. Each near miss taught him something about her style, the subtle shift in her stance before a spinning strike, the way she adjusted her weight when jumping between platforms, the pattern of her attacks when she tried to overwhelm him. With each observation, he grew more confident, more capable of keeping up. Their movements became faster, more intricate, almost like a dance. Sparks of energy flew across the arena as her weapons struck the platforms he had just vacated. He dodged, rolled, and pushed off walls to maintain distance, using both his body and his mind to survive. It was exhausting, but he remained calm, focusing on the patterns and rhythms rather than the immediate danger. The princess decided to change tactics. She slowed slightly, feigning fatigue, testing whether he would overcommit or misstep. The human noticed the subtle shift. He realized it was a test and adjusted accordingly, moving cautiously, ready for a sudden attack. This small battle of wits was as important as any physical strike. Each learned from the other, adapting with every moment. The arena itself became a tool in their duel. Glowing pools reflected light, creating illusions and distractions. Floating platforms provided both advantage and risk. The human used shadows and reflections to mislead the princess. Slipping behind her line of sight and moving where she least expected, she responded with precision, keeping him within reach while avoiding overextension. As the minutes passed, mutual respect began to grow, though neither would admit it openly. The princess recognized that this human strength lay not in muscle or energy, but in mind, instinct, and courage. The human understood that raw power could be matched by skill and strategy, that the princess's abilities were extraordinary, yet not insurmountable if approached thoughtfully. The duel had shifted. What began as a test of strength became a test of character, endurance, and intelligence. Neither fighter could claim superiority, yet each had moments of advantage and moments of vulnerability. The crowd, sensing the shift, leaned forward in anticipation, amazed by the display of skill and resilience. Finally, the princess paused briefly, her glowing eyes narrowing as she studied him closely. "You are clever," she admitted, a rare note of respect in her voice. "I underestimated you. Few have lasted this long, and fewer have done so with such control. But this duel is far from over." The human adjusted his stance, ready for the next wave. He had survived, yes, but he knew the hardest part was yet to come. He was learning, adapting, and pushing the limits of his own endurance. Each movement brought new insight. Each moment of survival, a small victory in itself. The air in the arena was electric. Every movement, every dodge, every strike had drawn the audience deeper into the drama. The duel was no longer about who would fall first. It was about skill, respect, and the unfolding story of two remarkable fighters meeting on equal ground for the first time. And with that, the human prepared for the next exchange, knowing that the duel had only just reached its most critical stage, a stage where intelligence and courage might finally match raw strength. The duel had lasted longer than anyone in the arena expected. The alien warrior princess, once confident that a single minute would be enough to defeat the human, now found herself continuously adjusting her attacks. He was faster than she anticipated, but more importantly, he was clever. Each movement, Each dodge seemed designed not only to survive, but to study her, to learn her patterns, and to test her limits. She could feel her initial arrogance fading, replaced by a focus sharper than she had ever known. The human was breathing steadily inside his suit. Sweat trickled down his forehead, but he remained calm. He had survived the first few minutes through instinct and agility, but now he was beginning to see opportunities to truly test her. He noticed subtle habits in her movements, small tells that indicated where her strikes would land. While her attacks were fast and powerful, they followed patterns he could observe if he stayed alert. The challenge no longer frightened him. It excited him. The princess struck again, launching herself into the air and spinning her energy blade with precision. The human ducked, rolled, and sprang upward onto a floating platform, narrowly avoiding the strike. Sparks flew across the arena as her blade struck the platform beneath him. He steadied himself, breathing slowly, and noted her pattern. She favored, attacking from above after certain movements, using momentum from her spins to strike downward. He began to anticipate her attacks. Timing his jumps, he dodged just as her weapon struck, using her own momentum to propel himself into advantageous positions. The princess tried to adjust, speeding up her attacks, but he matched her pace, his movements growing more confident with each exchange. What had started as a one-sided duel was now a dance of equal skill. The crowd was silent in disbelief. Whispers spread quickly. She is strong, but he is surviving. Look at how he moves. He is learning. Perhaps he is more than human. They have never faced one like this before. The audience's expectations had shifted. No longer did they anticipate a swift victory for their princess. They were witnessing a battle of equals, a test of skill, intelligence, and endurance. The princess realized she could not simply overpower him. She had to adapt. Her attacks became less predictable, combining feints and real strikes, moving in ways designed to confuse and challenge him. The human studied her carefully, noticing subtle clues, slight shifts in her stance, the angle of her shoulders, the way she balanced her weight. Each observation allowed him to predict her movements more accurately and evade with skill. For the first time in her life, the princess felt the thrill of real challenge. She had fought countless warriors, but few had kept pace with her intelligence and reflexes. This human was different. He was neither reckless nor arrogant. He was cautious, observant, and remarkably resilient. She began to respect his skill, acknowledging silently that he was not just surviving. He was learning and adapting faster than she anticipated. The human saw that the princess was changing her approach. Her attacks, while still powerful, were now deliberate, carefully calculated. He recognized that she respected him, even if she would not admit it aloud. This was a rare moment. Two opponents from entirely different worlds acknowledging each other's abilities without words. Every strike, every dodge was a conversation, a test of strategy, endurance, and willpower. The duel intensified. The princess leaped from one platform to another, her weapons moving in a blur, while the human used agility and quick thinking to evade. He noticed a small gap in her defense when she spun in midair, and though he could have struck, he chose instead to observe to learn more. This restraint was intentional. He understood that the duel was as much about endurance and understanding as it was about skill. The arena seemed to shrink around them, though it was vast. Each movement echoed in the reflective walls, each strike sending small tremors across the platforms. The human adapted continuously, using the environment to his advantage. He dodged behind glowing pillars, leapt over streams of energy, and pushed off platforms to reach higher ground. Every motion required both strategy and instinct, and every successful evasion gave him confidence. The princess, sensing his growing skill, increased her intensity. Her strikes became faster, her movements more complex, and her focus absolute. She tested not only his physical ability, but his mental endurance, combining unpredictable patterns with speed and force. Yet the human matched her in resilience. He remained calm under pressure, thinking several steps ahead, using observation to stay alive and maintain balance. A shift occurred between them. The duel, once purely about victory, now became a silent dialogue. The princess recognized that her initial arrogance had been misplaced. This human, underestimated by all, had shown courage, intelligence, and adaptability. She began to adjust, learning from him, even as he learned from her. Every strike was now a challenge to both skill and understanding, not just a test of raw power. The human too realized that he was facing more than strength. He was facing a mind capable of learning, adapting, and predicting. He focused carefully, observing her patterns, timing his movements, and making small, calculated maneuvers. He did not attack recklessly. He matched strategy with patience. This was no longer about survival alone. It was about proving that skill. Patience and courage could meet raw power on equal footing. The audience watched in awe. Aliens who had come expecting a swift demonstration of the princess's superiority now whispered in admiration. He is matching her. He is not just surviving. He is learning. Perhaps he can last longer than anyone expected. The human had become a symbol of determination, resilience, and intelligence in a world where strength often ruled all. The princess paused for a heartbeat, catching her breath as she observed him. "You are clever," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I underestimated you. Few have survived this long, and fewer have done so with such control. But this duel is far from over." Her voice carried authority and respect, though she did not reveal the depth of her acknowledgement. The human adjusted his stance, ready for the next exchange. He had survived, yes, but he knew the hardest part was yet to come. Each movement brought new insight, each moment of evasion a lesson. He understood that the duel was as much about strategy as about reflexes, and he felt a quiet confidence that he could continue to adapt and endure. The arena seemed alive with energy. Sparks of light and reflections danced across the platforms, creating illusions and challenges. Both fighters moved with precision, each strike a test, each dodge a calculation. The duel was no longer about who would fall first. It was about intelligence, skill, endurance, and the respect that had quietly grown between them. And in that moment, as they faced each other across the arena, both understood a simple truth. Victory would not be determined by strength alone, nor by speed alone. It would be determined by the ability to adapt, to learn, and to endure. The princess prepared for the next strike, her mind sharper than ever. The human focused, ready to meet her challenge with courage, patience, and skill. The duel had reached a new level, a test of minds as much as bodies, where respect and understanding were as important as every move made. The duel had stretched far beyond what anyone in the arena expected. The suns hung lower in the sky, casting long, shifting shadows across the platforms, and the air hummed with energy. Both the alien warrior princess and the human were breathing steadily, though their bodies were strained from the intensity of the battle. Neither had made a fatal mistake, and yet each had learned far more about the other than either could have anticipated. The princess moved with incredible speed, her weapons spinning in arcs of light that seemed almost impossible to track. But the human had adapted. He leapt from a floating platform, rolled under an energy blade, and landed lightly on the reflective surface of the arena floor. He no longer merely reacted, he anticipated, reading subtle movements and preparing before the strikes even came. The duel had become a contest of wits as much as skill. For a moment they paused, facing each other across the arena. Sweat glistened on the human's brow inside his suit, while the princess's armor reflected the fading sunlight. There was a silence, not of defeat, but of recognition. Each had survived and adapted to the other's strength. The princess's eyes, once full of certainty and arrogance, now held a spark of respect. The human's gaze was steady, confident, and unafraid. "You are unlike any opponent I have faced," the princess admitted quietly. Her voice carried over the arena, calm, but filled with an unusual intensity. "You are clever, quick, and brave. Few could match me in strength, yet you endure. You learn, you adapt. I misjudged you." The human nodded slightly, acknowledging her words. "I respect your skill," he replied. "You are strong, fast, and precise. I could never underestimate you, but strength alone does not decide the outcome. Strategy, patience, and understanding matter too. The princess considered this. She had faced countless warriors who relied solely on power. Few had combined intellect, courage, and adaptability as this human had. She realized that victory was no longer a simple matter of striking, harder or faster. This duel had become a test of endurance, intelligence, and mutual understanding. With renewed focus, she launched a series of attacks, each more complex and faster than the last. The human moved with precision, dodging, leaping, and using the arena itself to his advantage. He pushed off walls, slid across platforms, and used reflections to mislead her attacks. Every movement was measured, a careful balance of defense and observation. He did not strike recklessly. He waited, anticipating her next moves, and creating openings for himself. The arena was alive with energy and movement. Sparks flew as weapons clashed, and glowing liquid rippled underfoot from their rapid movements. The audience watched in awe, silent, except for occasional gasps and whispers. They had come expecting the princess to win quickly, yet now they witnessed a human who could match her skill, resilience, and intellect. Some whispered that perhaps this human could endure longer than anyone had imagined, while others marveled at the unexpected display of mutual respect between two powerful beings from different worlds. As the final moments approached, the princess realized she could not simply defeat him with a single strike. She had underestimated the human, but she could no longer ignore the lesson he had taught her. Skill, courage, and intelligence could match even the most extraordinary strength. She adjusted her stance, slowing her movement slightly, not out of weakness, but to challenge him in a new way. The human noticed this subtle shift. He could see that the princess was testing him, evaluating how he would respond. He chose not to attack immediately, instead using careful footwork and positioning to maintain balance and control. This was not the moment for reckless moves. This was the moment to prove endurance, patience, and adaptability. For several heartbeats, they moved almost in unison. Every strike and dodge was mirrored, every step calculated, until it seemed as if the arena itself had become a stage for a dance of skill and strategy. Neither fighter gave an inch, yet neither sought to cause lasting harm. The duel was no longer about defeating the other. It was about understanding, testing limits, and demonstrating the heights of their abilities. Finally, the princess paused, lowering her weapon slightly. She regarded the human with new admiration. "You have proven yourself," she said. "You endure, adapt, and learn faster than I expected. I cannot claim victory today, for you have matched me in every way." The human, exhausted but steady, lowered his stance as well. "And you have shown me the power of skill and precision," he replied. "Your strength is extraordinary, but it is matched by your discipline and intelligence. I have learned much from facing you." There was a moment of silence, a quiet acknowledgement between two warriors who had tested each other to the limits of their abilities. The audience, sensing the rare conclusion of a duel without a clear winner, erupted in applause. Cheers and gasps filled the arena, celebrating not just the skill of the princess, but the courage and ingenuity of the human who had met her as an equal. The princess extended a hand toward the human, not in challenge, but in respect. "You have earned my recognition," she said. "Few humans would have lasted this long, and none have fought with such intelligence and courage. Perhaps we are not so different as I once believed." The human shook her hand firmly, acknowledging her words. "Respect is earned, and today we have earned it from each other." He said, "Strength alone does not define victory. Understanding, courage, and adaptability are just as important." The duel ended not in defeat, but in mutual recognition. Both fighters had pushed each other to the limits, learned from every move, and discovered that skill, intelligence, and resilience could stand against even the greatest strength. The crowd erupted in applause, honoring both combatants for their extraordinary display. In the following days, stories of the duel spread across the city and beyond. Aliens spoke of the human who had met the princess as an equal, and humans would later tell tales of the alien warrior, whose respect could be earned through courage and intelligence. Alliances formed not out of fear or domination, but out of understanding and mutual admiration. The princess, once proud and unyielding, learned humility and the value of respect for others. The human once seen as ordinary became a symbol of determination, intelligence, and the potential of courage. And so the encounter that began with a challenge, "A minute is all you'll last," ended not in defeat or victory, but in recognition. Two beings from different worlds, bound by skill, courage, and mutual respect, parted ways with the knowledge that they had met as equals. The duel had changed them both, and the story of their meeting would be told across worlds as a lesson in endurance, intelligence, and the power of understanding. As the sun set over the alien city, casting golden and violet light across the arena, the human and the princess walked away from the battle, each reflecting on what they had learned. One had discovered that courage and ingenuity could match strength, and the other had discovered that respect and understanding could be as powerful as any weapon. Their duel had ended, but the story of their encounter and the lessons it taught would endure far longer than any single striker victory.